Everyone abandoned my twin daughters, until a kind orc woman changed our lives forever. She never planned to do this alone. Nobody does, right? You don't sit down one day and think, yes, this is the life I want. 2 babies, no help, a bus pass, and a bag that rips every single time. It just happens. One day you're making plans with people, and the next day you're looking around, and all those people are just gone. Her twin daughters were born on a Tuesday morning, both healthy, both loud, both perfect. And she sat in that hospital room after everything was done, holding 2 tiny babies at the same time for the first time, and she felt something she didn't expect to feel. Completely alone. Not in a dramatic way. Not crying into the pillow kind of alone. Just the quiet kind. The kind where you look at the door and nobody walks through it. Her mother had promised to come. She didn't. Her sister said she'd take 2 weeks off work to help. She texted instead. So sorry. Things got complicated. The father of the girls had been gone before the due date even came, and a handful of friends who had sworn up and down that they'd be there, who had literally said those exact words, "I will be there," found reasons, one by one, to be somewhere else. She didn't make a big scene about it. That's not who she is. She just quietly adjusted, the way you do when you have no other choice. She packed up the hospital bag herself. She called a cab because she couldn't figure out how to get 2 newborns on a bus. She went home. And then life started. Anyone who has raised twins alone knows what that first year looks like. It's not beautiful. It's not the kind of thing you put on a card. It's 2 babies crying at the same time at 3 a.m., and your body hasn't slept more than 2 hours straight in weeks, and you're standing in the kitchen trying to remember if you already made the formula or if you just thought about making it. She did it. That's the whole summary. She just did it. The girls grew. They started walking, which was terrifying. They started talking, which was loud. They had opinions about everything, including which cup was the right cup and which cup was absolutely not acceptable, and the difference between the 2 cups was not visible to the human eye, but apparently mattered enormously. They were funny. They were exhausting. They were hers. She built a routine so tight it could hold water. Wake up at 6. Get both girls dressed, which always took longer than it should, because someone's sock would be wrong, or someone would want the other someone's shirt. Breakfast, double stroller down 3 flights of stairs. Bus, grocery store, bus back, nap time, if she was lucky. Dinner, bath, bed, then a few quiet hours where she would sit and be completely still and just breathe. She stopped waiting for help. That was the shift. She stopped picking up the phone, expecting someone to say, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. Do you need anything?" She stopped leaving that door open in her heart. It was easier that way. Expecting nothing meant nothing could disappoint you. She was fine. She told herself that constantly. Fine is enough. Fine keeps the lights on. Fine gets the girls to their checkups and makes sure they have clean clothes, and reads them the same 2 books every night, even though she could recite both from memory now, without looking at a single page. Fine is survivable. She had lived in the same building for almost 2 years before she really noticed her neighbor. The woman lived 2 units down. She was tall, the kind of tall that fills a doorway without trying. She had a calm about her that was hard to describe, the kind of stillness that doesn't feel cold, it just feels settled, like she had made peace with everything around her a long time ago, and was simply living inside that peace. She was an orc woman, green-skinned, with kind eyes and hands that looked strong enough to hold anything that needed holding. They had passed each other in the hallway dozens of times. Polite nods, small smiles. The kind of interaction you have with neighbors when everyone is minding their own lives. Then one afternoon, the stroller wheel caught the edge of the curb in the parking lot. It happened fast. 1 second everything was fine. The next second, the bag was on the ground, and everything in it had scattered across the pavement. Diapers, snacks, the one toy that could not be lost under any circumstances, and the smaller twins' shoe had somehow launched itself 3 feet away, and both girls were awake and unhappy about the sudden stop, and there were simply not enough hands. The neighbor was just there, no announcement, no big entrance. She picked up the shoe. She steadied the stroller. She gathered the things from the ground with a quiet efficiency that felt like she'd done this 100 times, even though she clearly had not. She handed everything back. That was it. That was the whole moment. But she said thank you 4 times. She counted afterward, and felt embarrassed about it. 4 times. like her mouth didn't know when to stop. The neighbor just smiled. Not a pitying smile, not a poor you smile, just a real one. And then she went on her way. That should have been the end of it. A nice moment between neighbors. One of those small kindnesses you remember for a day and then forget. But the neighbor kept showing up, not in a pushy way, not in the way that makes you feel like someone has decided to rescue you and you didn't ask to be rescued. She just kept being present in ways that were small and specific, and exactly right. The week both girls came down with a fever and she was running on nothing. Not a day, not 2 days. A full week of sick babies and no sleep, and the particular kind of despair that comes from being the only person in the house who can't afford to fall apart. She came home one evening to find a container of soup outside her door. No note, no knock, just soup. She stood in the hallway for a long time. She didn't know what to do with it. That sounds strange, but it's true. She genuinely did not know how to receive something like that. She had gotten so used to not receiving anything that the arrival of a warm container of soup from someone who expected nothing back felt like a language she had almost forgotten how to speak. She ate the soup, it was good. She cried a little, but not in a sad way. More like something that had been held very tightly for a very long time, got to loosen, just slightly, just for a minute. The girls took to her immediately. Kids always know. They have a radar for people who are genuinely safe, and both girls, who were suspicious of most strangers, and had very firm opinions about who was allowed to speak to them, decided within about 30 seconds that this neighbor was acceptable. They called her by a version of her name that dropped a syllable, and added one that wasn't there. The neighbor never corrected them. She just answered to it. She watched that, and felt something she couldn't quite name. For a while she waited for the catch. That's the honest truth of it. She kept waiting for the shift she knew from everyone else. The way warmth slowly becomes busy, busy becomes distant, distant becomes a text every few weeks, and then nothing. She kept waiting for that familiar exit, because she had seen it enough times to know its shape. It didn't come. The neighbor just kept being who she was. Consistent, undemanding, present without making it a performance. She helped when help was needed, and disappeared when space was needed, and somehow, always seemed to know the difference. One evening they were sitting on the front steps while the girls played in the small patch of grass nearby. The light was doing that thing it does in the late afternoon where everything goes gold for a few minutes. She was talking. Probably too much. She talks too much when she's nervous. Explaining herself, justifying things that didn't need justifying, filling the silence the way she always did when she wasn't sure if she was allowed to just sit. The neighbor listened. She had a way of listening that made you feel heard without making you feel watched. And then she said something simple. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't advice. It was just a plain, quiet, honest thing that looked directly at the truth of the situation, without flinching, and without making it bigger than it needed to be. It was the kind of thing that could only be said by someone who had been actually paying attention. She couldn't tell you the exact words now. Memory is strange that way. But she could tell you exactly how she felt when she heard them. Like a window had been opened in a room that had been closed for a very long time. Like someone had finally seen the real version of her, not the fine version, not the I've got it handled version, and had not looked away. The girls are older now. They have strong personalities and loud laughs and very specific feelings about which color cup is acceptable on any given day. They are doing well. She is doing well, not fine well, actually well. Nothing dramatic changed. That's what she wants people to understand when she tells this story. There was no single rescue. No one swept in and fixed everything. The bus route is still the bus route. The days are still long. The nights still sometimes feel too quiet. But there is one person in her life now who chose to be there. Not because of blood or obligation or guilt. Not because they were supposed to. Just because they looked at the whole situation and decided, quietly and without ceremony, that they weren't leaving. And it turns out that one person, just one, can change the entire feeling of a life. Not by solving anything, not by making the hard parts disappear. Just by being someone you don't have to brace against. Someone you don't have to perform for. Someone who shows up with soup and picks up a shoe and listens on the front steps while the light goes gold and the girls play in the grass. She stopped counting the people who left. There's no point in counting anymore, because for the first time in a long time, she's too busy noticing the one who stayed.